Donnie be
Good day, good evening, as it were. I am your host, Donnie B. GotDaBeats, for the latest edition of The Beat. Listen, I have a very good show for y'all today. I am blessed to have this guest on today, and I met him a few weeks back. But we won't get into that in the glorious intro. But I'm elated. This is going to be a really good one, and I'm going to have to truncate this to keep this at an hour because I know this brother's time is precious. But without further ado, you know what time it is for those that watch this. This is the time for that glorious intro, y'all. Here we go. So I always have a purpose for the things that I do, man. I mean, I was raised in a single family household, and it was difficult. Shout out to my moms, man, for bringing us through it. But from my mom's side of the family, we were raised in the Nation of Islam, and a lot of people don't know that. So a lot of my core beliefs and values are from the Nation of Islam. We have adopted a lot of the other ways of the world. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Not everybody's perfect, but the thing is that I strongly adhere to a lot of the principles and values set in that culture and in that religion. And so without further ado, I'm going to say this. A few weeks back, I was able to go to the Grammys. And, I was at the Grammys, but I did some Grammy events, came across a bunch of people, some of which are going to be on the show coming up. Shout out to Kev Ave and the whole team from NYC. But I met this brother, amazing speaker, love his poise, love his energy, and the fact that he does a lot of philanthropy, a lot of advocacy. I was like, brother, I got to please be on my show because, I got sometimes I got to beg, so it is what it is. Without further ado, I have the pleasure to invite this brother on my show. He's a professional enrichment builder. He's the CEO of dbollc. He's also the DMV chairman. Shout out to the DMV. He's the DMV chairman of the National Black Panther Party, the official National Black Panther Party. I got Minister Elijah DVine. What's going on with you, brother? How you doing today?
Peace, brother. Peace. Peace coming from the East Coast. Much love to my West Coast family. Hey. Much love to my family from the DMV area. A couple of things is dbollc, which stands for Diverse Branding Outlet LLC. And we're the new Black Panther Party, but we still national and we still strong. My name is Elijah DVine. We're all divine by design. I'm honored to be here with brother Donnie B, all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, that PG County love. Hey. It was just amazing to, officially had that conversation with you a few weeks ago. And I think everything is divine and how things happen. And it was very refreshing to have that conversation where it felt like I was submerged into someone that understands what it means to be Black in PG County. And the nuances that are there with being Black in PG County and how things go, here on the East Coast and the different levels of experiences that people share. So I was just very happy to have someone to talk to about that with. And yeah, I'm ready for a great show. I'm ready for an amazing interview and an amazing conversation. And I'm excited to elevate with our platforms together.
I appreciate that, brother, sincerely, and like you, you blow the doors off of me with the conversation, man. Like seriously, and again, and in this podcast, in this show, I lovingly refer to the PG County as Wakanda. And I feel that, you know, the nation of Wakanda, you know, it's a very, very, it's a gem in that region. It's so advanced and ahead of its time. It's a lot of political posturing, but it's a lot of technological advancements, and yet it's still very culturally enriched. You know, it's a lot of love, it's a lot of talent. It is also a lot of struggle and a lot of painstaking things that's happening there. But like you said, it was really refreshing to come across another Wakanda person, you know, as it were. But you know, like I said, I'm thankful to have you on, and yes, this will be a good show. But what I normally do as the first question is I like to take it back.
Okay.
Before we fully go back, I want to ask this bridge gateway question: who is Elijah DVine? Who are you? What is your brand? Let the people know.
Well, thank you for that question. People rarely ask who is someone, right? And I like to ask people what's the definition of their names. People don't do that anymore. Elijah DVine is someone who's been through his fair share of trials and tribulations and hardship, and has experienced certain things in life from, and I'll get further into that conversation, but experienced different things in life that caused me to reflect on the trajectory that I had, right? And the path that I had. I'm someone that went from being called Eli, you know what I mean, to Eli the Menace, to Eli the artist that I once went by, to Elijah DVine, to Mr. DVine, and now, you know, just becoming someone that is whole. Elijah DVine stands for like my government name, Elijah D, last name Vines. So shout out to the Vines, is my family from my father's lineage, North Carolina. So that's who Elijah DVine is really composed of and made up of. You know, the activism and the work that I do is a reflection of a lot of, you know, self-reflection, you know, thinking about the things that I can do with the energy I've always had. I've always been like a hyper type of guy, a very talkative type of guy. So I'm like the cultivation of every bit of my childhood wrapped up into one. So now I'm the adult version of what my childhood self always wanted to see.
I love it. I love that. That's an eloquent. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm talking about. The way he puts his words together. I'm trying to tell you, this is going to be a great interview, man. Seriously. Mr. Elijah, growing up could you describe what it was like growing up for you in you know, PG County area, and you know, any kind of struggles or anything that you experienced to become you know, and got over, and hurdles that you jumped over in order to become the success that you are today?
Great question. Again, another great question. A lot of light in recent years has been shown on PG County in terms of the athleticism from the area, the many celebrities that come from the area, the fact that it's one of the wealthiest areas for Black people in America to live. It just fell down to number 2 to Charles County, which is our neighboring county, where a lot of people from PG County moved to. Yeah. People don't talk about the displacement of original African-American people, or people of color, I should say, that lived in DC, that made it Chocolate City, and then had the housing programs that pushed them to Prince George's County. Right. So Prince George's County is mainly made up of individuals that were originally from DC, some people coming in from North Carolina, some people coming from South Carolina, some people coming from Baltimore, and finding newfound opportunities to make a better life for themselves. That's where the affluent wealth came from, right? But there's a dark undertone in which I grew up around, where you might have your cousins, or you might have your direct family members, or you might have your direct neighbors that are from an area that's not so much privileged as you would see it in everyday life, right? Because it's a suburban area. It's wildly considered a suburb. Prince George's County as a whole is considered a suburban areas. However, there are still in the different areas of PG County. Right. Now, growing up in like the Fort Washington area, the Oxon Hill, Eastover area, you know, even you got Clinton, Temple Hills, all these areas around each other, you have a mixture very beautiful homes, and then you have those homes that aren't so beautiful. They're aging. They've been there for 40 plus years. That's probably where how my family home is. You grew up in a house that is kind of condensed to the surrounding area that was built up around it. So then you have the same mindsets of people in that area as well. You might have someone who has parents that are well off and they're lawyers and they're doctors, but their kids want to be trappers, or their kids want to be on the block hustling, or their kids, you know what I mean, are struggling in school. The school system isn't good. It may be better now, but when I went to school, Fridley High School was underfunded. You know what I mean? The funding was not there. Much of the information that I'm now realizing, now that I live in another county, I'm realizing like I didn't learn as much as I could have or should have during that time. And yeah, it's a very interesting conundrum, because from the outside looking in, you're like, well, you have everything. You're Black wealth, Black excellence. But what is Black excellence to the greater measurement of excellence as a whole, right? If you're lacking in the resources, if you're lacking in the mentality to sustain it, and the form of accountability that most parents needed to give their children while raising them to sustain said excellence. So that's what it was like growing up for me. You know, you face certain things, you face certain, you know, childhood traumas, certain ordeals, such as watching friends pass away at a young age, growing up with people, you know what I mean? I know some shakers and movers, you know, and I'm not personally that guy. I always looked at myself as like Trey from Boys in the Hood, right? Like someone that always wanted to move in a direction that is separate from my peers. And that's not everyone's narrative, but ultimately I do see where there's parallel lives that are existing in the same space.
Right, right. But and you know, and coming from the same walks of life as you, I totally understand and appreciate that. You know, it's interesting because I too was somewhat like that. I felt like I was more of that Trey Styles type of person. You know, my dad was very militant. My dad was a preacher. You know, he was in the Christian faith, but he was a preacher's son. And my family came from the north instead of coming from the south. Actually, they came from the south by way of the north, because my grandmother and family came from South Carolina, actually. But they settled in Philadelphia and South Jersey, and then my mom and my dad met, and then they migrated down south because my dad went to Howard. And that's how my family originated, you know, how I came to be in the DMV. Interesting though, as you say, with all of those things. So you went to Friendly, I went to Fairmont. Shout out to Fairmont Heights.
Fairmont, what up, Fairmont?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Fairmont Heights and shout out to Friendly High School, PG County Public Schools. We made it, y'all. So you can't sit there and say we ain't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you know, it like you said, people don't get it. You expect there are labels that are stamped upon a bunch of different things. And people that don't get it, they just don't get it. Like you said, you could be viewed as affluent but still be struggling. You could be viewed as struggling but still be affluent. There's a lot of different things that area is very complex, and the ranges between the complexities is very dynamic. You know, so I'm glad to hear that you share that, brother, because more people need to talk about and bring PG County to the light. Unfortunately, I'm the guy that wanted. I'm like, any chance I get, I want to open the DMV up and open PG County up, because people need to understand just what it is right there, man. Black excellence, like unlimited. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you for sharing. I want to take it a step further now. How did you get into advocacy and philanthropy? I know we jumped like quantum level, time, time jump, but what was your call to action or call to activity for you to get into advocacy and philanthropy? Did it start somewhere small and then germinate, or like, just how did you get into the whole scope of it?
Right. So, and I'm glad that you asked that. It took recent years of reflection for me to see where it really came from. And in hindsight, I've actually been doing this for years. It just wasn't molded completely, or it didn't come to a head until maybe 10 years ago. Because even when I used to do slam poetry back in high school, they called me the philanthropist. Like, that was my nickname, literally. But before that, I'll never forget, in elementary school, Tyack Elementary, I think I was maybe in the 3rd or 4th grade. I can't remember which specific grade, but they took us on a field trip. If anyone's ever in the Baltimore area, I recommend, if this place still exists, because a couple years ago I went again, but I recommend taking your children to the Blacks and Wax Museum. It's a very small museum, but the museum is one that I believe is a rite of passage for an experience for children. Now, I was horrified when I went. As a child, I used to have a very fear of mannequins. Mannequins used to scare the crap out of me. I couldn't go into a mall without being afraid of mannequins. But with the Blacks and Wax Museum, it's a very graphic depiction of our history, which includes our time in being enslaved. Even it shows some times before that, the royalty coming from Africa and things of that nature, but it also shows our time of enslavement. And it shows our time coming through the transatlantic slave trade. Then it shows our progression through American society and building up society in our history with our different forms of representation, and then growing up into the present. So that's something that I experienced at a very young age. And that traumatic experience, like they had to carry me out of there. I couldn't even, the moment we went in, I had to go back, but they didn't walk through the entire thing. And after experiencing that, it shocked my system. It never left me. Obviously, if I'm able to talk about it now, 20 plus years later, it shocked my system, and it forced me to think about history that I never otherwise would have known about. Fast forward to middle school, shout out to Isaac J. Gordine. I had a teacher by the name of Mr. King that made it. He was a history teacher, and he made our assignment to watch Roots. So he literally sat us down to watch all of Roots. That was some of our assignment. I would have never seen Roots had he not presented Roots to me, right? And that's one of the perks of growing up in a predominantly Black area. If you do not learn about Black history and growing up in a predominantly Black area, something's wrong. You got to challenge the status quo. So I was blessed enough to have teachers that looked like me, representing me, and being able to give me history that I otherwise wouldn't have had elsewhere.
Right.
So these are things that intrinsically were instilled upon me about value, self-worth, knowing the rich and not so pretty past of my ancestry or people that came before me, and knowing how important it is for me to have my moment when it's time. And during these years, even in elementary school, I used to do the morning and afternoon announcements. They used to have me on the TV. Like we had like a little news station. I'm remembering these things. And that was in elementary school. In middle school, I also did the morning and afternoon announcements. Then high school, I hosted pep rallies, hosted the basketball games, was on the poetry team, the acting, team. I directed plays. And during that time, I also was still doing the morning and afternoon announcements. So my experience in media and public speaking has been cultivated for years, and also having to challenge the conversation or shift the conversation to focus on self or focus on our people. That's something that was instilled in me as a child, thankfully.
I mean, I love that, and I too was one of the ones who got to visit Blacks and Wax Museum. And actually, we visited that quite a bit, especially in my middle school, high school years. Growing up and going to Fairmont, FHHS, I can say that they did a lot to instill a lot of poise with our culture in that school. And a lot of teachers and faculty went above and beyond for us to know who we were. We even had a shout out to Miss Cole, but we had one of our the legends of the school and legends in the county. It's a middle-aged white lady. Well, we call her old white lady, but very cool. And she literally dangerous minded us to create this environment for us to understand our purpose and our sense of worth in the perspective of the people of pale skin. You know what I mean? Like she held us to the standard that to prepare us for what the world was like with those eyes on us. And I can honestly say with a straight face, I probably undervalued it until I left to go to college.
Come on now.
But I feel it's necessary. I feel it's necessary for you, like you said, for you to get to understand. Because how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you're at or where you've been?
Sankofa.
See,
Yep.
so it's necessary, and I think that's the gap between people in our generation and today's generation. A lot of these people are lost because they don't have a guide on. They don't have a, they can't position themselves because they weren't taught the core values that keep them guided. And again, who am I? But that's what it seems like to me, But I'm glad that you shared all of those things. I want to ask you, with regard to all of these things and how you got into it, I want to pivot. Same kind of question, but okay. I want to look at it from a different perspective. You said it's always been there, and and that was the catalyst for it. But when did you discover your talents for professional speaking? To be able to use your words as weapons, to be able to use and use that to advocate and deal with philanthropy.
That's a great question. I'll say 2009 to 2010, which was my freshman year in high school. Shout out to Pages Magnum in 2011, 2012, the Lyrical Audacity Poetry Slam team. That's Lauren May. I don't want to skip anybody's name. Antonio Mercurius, Lauren May, China McCombs, Dolores Woods, Amber. Oh my gosh, there's so many people that was a part of that family. That really, Pages Magnum was our mentor. He still does poetry to this day. He just had a viral video the other day, and he was one of our mentors in poetry. And before, like throughout middle school, going into high school, I would write music. I always been writing music since I was at least the age of 12. And during that time, shout out to Dre, my first producer, he was giving me a voice, right? However, there wasn't much molding there. It was just freedom of expression. And I'll never forget freshman year of high school, it was PSATs, right? Everybody taking the SAT test. And the people that wasn't taking the test were in the auditorium. So we all in the auditorium, and they shout out to Miss Cowan, God rest her soul. We all had like a mini talent show. So I got up on a talent show stage, and during this talent show stage, I got up and tried to rap the music that I thought was legit. I thought I was good. Never rapped on a beat a day in my life. Never performed in front of anyone on a stage before. So at least by myself. So I got up there. The beat came on. I was struggling. I was like, yo, they started booing me. Boo, they booing me. I'm just like, yo. Miss Cowan comes up. She's like, it takes a lot for people to be able to, get up here and do this. The classic, if you lame and you suck, you should feel good about yourself type of thing. Because I sucked. I mean, honestly, I had to improve, right? Not saying it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to suck. It's just to know the position that you're in currently.
Right.
So she said that, and they gave me another chance. I got up on the stage, and I tried to catch the beat. Was not catching the beat. They started booing again. And then I said, and they called me DMX, RIP to DMX. They called me DMX in my 4 years of high school since then. Anyone that I went to school with, they'll tell you, they'll call me DMX. I have a raspy voice, right? So I got up on the stage, and they was like, they started booing me. And I was like, yo, if y'all don't like my rhymes, y'all could go to HE double hockey stick. And if you still don't like my rhymes, you can suck my and everybody went crazy. Everybody going crazy. I'm just like, yo. Of course, they was talking about suspending me. They didn't suspend me, but during that time, I felt it. Like everybody went crazy, and I felt the ultimate change in the crowd dynamic. I'm just like, yo, they're cheering for me now. I did something up there. I don't care how wild it was. They're cheering for me, and now I felt that taste of, oh, you can win a crowd, kid. You just got to be better, right? I was, I sat down, and after I sat down with that, it's ironic, I sat down with Lauren May, and we both ended up becoming on the same poetry team by Pages. And Pages said, look, he was listening to us, perform our stuff and practice our stuff, and I wasn't a polished speaker at all. He literally took his time. Another brother named Patrick, Word Beats in Life, also helped out a lot. During that time, they said, yo, why are you so upset? Why are you so angry? Why is all of your forms of expression so rudimentary? Like, you can use other words than you know, I don't know if I can curse on here, but you can
It's
use,
totally fine. Absolutely.
yeah. You can use other words than fuck, shit, damn, bitch. You know, you don't have to use those words every single time. You know, if unless that's the direct word that you need in that moment, don't use it so much as a crutch. Learn other words and learn other forms of expression, because you're not one dimensional. You know, you're not a one-dimensional being. That changed my entire form of expression. And of course, we'll meet like every week and we'll be working on new poetry, working on memorization, preparing for competition, and that's when I finally discovered the talent. And it wasn't me discovering it, was the help of someone else seeing it within me for me to become a professional speaker, learn the art of word. And I'm still learning, of course. I had an English teacher named Ms. Rawls who wanted me to start learning the dictionary. And she literally had me read words every day, random words out the dictionary, and said, yo, if you know, you have this passion, but be a wordsmith, you know, learn what it means to challenge yourself in thought, learn what it means to challenge yourself in dialect. You know, you're not one-dimensional. I keep saying dimensionary, but one-dimensional. Yep, that's where it all started from.
Yeah, no, you know, and I'm glad that you say that because we share a commonality in that, and I truly believe that, because I'm huge on vocabulary. I'm huge on, like you said, dialect, voice inflection, how to communicate, in a space to know how to communicate. Those are the bare bones of how to traverse, you know, and share principles and share contact with other people, right, and share energy. So, the one thing that I will say is that the MV area prepared me for everywhere else in the country because of those principles. And it's funny, even being gone, I've been here since 2015 in Los Angeles, and I gotta say, I can count. I don't even have enough fingers and toes. How many times people have said, "Yo, you talk funny," and I'm using other words, like something simple words, you know, or choosing to use certain words. Oh, that's unfortunate. Not everybody says that's unfortunate, but it's a simple word that everybody uses. Things, you know, but having the understanding and the comprehension to be able to utilize words in your arsenal it's a blessing. So I definitely understand and agree with you. I think that more people need to do it, and more people need to understand just how impactful words are. Because, like Chris Rock said in his stand-up yesterday, words hurt. Especially if you put the words on a brick.
No, that's true. Even to that note as well, not the Chris Rock joke, but the significance of words, right? I say all of that, but I also am acknowledging that I come from a community where we speak in what they're now considering African American dialect, right? And often, you know, so I'm all for learning new ways of speaking and evolving. You know, they call it code switching, right? I'm all for being able to evolve your level of speech and be able to communicate with other people in different forms of language. We need that in order to bridge gaps, in order to have other conversations, in order to keep ourselves from being isolated. I think the DMV very much so struggles with our ability to adapt to other forms of language and other forms of English that is not inherently in the African American dialect, right? Or Ebonics, if we will. And I've struggled with that at times. Like, I hate code switching. Recently was my first time really working in a space that's not predominantly Black. So my employer, my coworker, my manager was white, and this is my first time actually having to converse in a certain way on a 8-hour basis. And I'm getting exhausted at that point. You know, my customers as a travel agent were primarily white or of other, you know, race or identity. So I'm finding myself using words that bridge a conversational gap so that they won't have to figure out what I mean when I say certain things. And sometimes it was a teachable moment too, where I'm teaching them certain words that I say and what it means. But I say that to say, being from the DMV, we do have to consciously break out of our shells and realize that the world does not evolve around us. I love our identity, but African American literature or African American dialect, aka Bonics, is a language. Be proud in it. It's a language that many people want to learn and emulate. You know, it's a language that many people from other ethnicities and other backgrounds are now using in their everyday language as, you know, their guilty pleasure. So just be mindful that you do speak more than one language, even if you're not speaking Spanish or French, or, you know, or other form or patois, and like you're speaking another language. But just be conscientious of when using that language. You know, you have to find yourself using it in appropriate ways and appropriate context for the appropriate crowd, because it might not boil over well with everyone that you communicated with in a straight shot way.
I'm glad that you said that. I truly am, and I thank you. It's interesting because, like you said, having the understanding that you have to wear these kind of hats in different scenarios and circumstances is definitely beneficial if you understand. Like I said, to be a champion of how to wield the the ability to use the different kind of verbiage. I have my, I'm kind of in between, but I can run the gambit. You know what I mean? I've worked Fortune 500. I've worked the government. I'm in the entertainment space right now. So, but like you said, different ethnicities, different cultures, I speak several languages, not fluent, but I can understand it because I understand the base dialect and so forth and so on. So I can kind of get something out of it. Saying all that to say, every now and again, I'll drop a fuck you mean, or what's the name in there. You know what I mean? Like because of the identity. I'm very much a DMV person, regardless. And DMV, I'm going to be a DMV person. I don't care what part of the globe I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm always going to be DMV because I am so DMV, and I do miss it for that. But I ain't never moving back. So that's all I say. You know what I mean? But with that saying, let's transition. I want to ask you the next question because, again, brother, your credentials read like stereo instructions, and I mean that in the most humbling and celebrated way. That's awesome. That's awesome. You're also a national youth minister. So the next question here is: being a national youth minister is like ... What's that like? Like I've met several youth ministers. I've never met a national youth minister until I met you. What is that even like? Like that's got to be like a
right. That's a great, man. You're asking some great questions. I appreciate you for asking great questions, challenging questions at that. Being a national youth minister, and it's primarily by way of being a Panther, which gives me the platform to do that. At least it elevated that platform. Because before that, I was already a teacher. I used to teach grades 1 through 5 at a school in Southeast called Garfield Elementary. Shout out to all my students at Garfield Elementary who now went on to graduate. I also been a summer camp counselor for years. Some of my students actually, it's crazy, when I was in college, some of my students were coming into college and were like, Mr. Elijah, yo, we're here now. And I'm like, yep, time to go. So I've been a mentor to the youth for over 7+ years. And I'm so grateful to be able to say that because that speaks to the things that I've done in the community for years. So being a national youth minister was actually a role bestowed upon me by my national chairman, Malik Zulu Shabazz, who's a civil rights attorney in Black Lawyers for Justice. He's the chairman and the national chairman of New Black Panther Party, and he saw something in me where he wanted me to fulfill a role within the Panthers that's very much so needed. And the reason why it's national, because we get calls from all over the country about the youth and the things that are going on with the youth. These are things I never even put on social media. Some of the calls that I have coming in at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, where we need to represent or talk to an endangered youth, or have people dispatched out across the country for a runaway, or for someone that might have been, sex trafficked, or we might have to dispatch someone or talk to them about their interest on joining the party, or have a conversation about some things that are happening in a racist, a racist situation, or situation that matters to the youth, where I'm the liaison for that, right? This year I'll be 27, so I'm starting to age out of the youth category, if you will. However, My ears are still to the streets. My heart and soul is still with the youthful nature of our youth, of our people that are younger than us and the generations behind us. And I realized the serious nature of where our children are growing, right? Where our adolescents are growing, and how you even mentioned earlier how they have no formal guidance. They have nothing to really look to for leadership. Don't get me wrong, we still have the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? He's aging out, and you have the next generation of the Nation of Islam coming up. 19 Keys, Brother Ben X, Riza Islam. These are powerful brothers. They're doing their thing, right? You still have people like Dr. Umar Johnson that, many people, laugh at some of the things that he say, but they still take serious with some of the information that he's spinning to us. So it's now a time where we do have more and more representation. However, my experience personally that puts in position to be a national youth minister is one that isn't so in your face. Like, I'm not like trying to overwhelm you with information. I'm more so trying to see the matters of your soul, the matters of your heart. Why do you feel the way that you feel? Why do you feel as though you have no one to turn to? What is causing your soul to ache in the way where you feel as though no adult can actually tell you anything, or you feel as though the adults are against you? That's what I mainly look at, versus giving you loads and loads of information, which is important, but sometimes that creates a further divide or disconnect. Like, the kids don't want to learn from us as much as we think they do, or as much as we think that they need to. They do need to learn from us, but our method of teaching, I believe, is aging out, and it's time to find other ways that are more creative in teaching and guiding them.
Segue into the next question, but I do want to comment on this, and I love everything that you said up in this interview up to this point. I'm sure I'll love everything after this point as well. But speaking about that with specificity, I went to Hampton University. Shout out to HIU. If you go to Hampton University, dead center of the campus, there's a statue of Booker T. Washington.
Okay.
Imprinted beneath that statue is this passage: education itself is useless. It's how you utilize the education that gives you its power. That is exactly the dissonance that I see. It's like there's a ton of information out there, but knowing what to do with it is what empowers people. And a lot of people don't know what to do with the information that they got. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I love the fact that your teaching style, because your teaching style addresses just that. You ask the person, how can it be more effective for them to comprehend and learn and become by listening to them and then giving them what they need in order to do it. Some might look at it as being, it's easy or it's lazy because they didn't do the work. Well, how can they do the work if they are not you know what I mean? Like, people, not everybody can see the whole field. Not everybody can see the whole basketball court. No, not everybody's Jason Kidd. Okay.
Oh, so no, not Jason Kidd.
Well, I mean, for you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I feel
you. But it's great to hear a dope, celebrated young brother to be able to understand and have his finger on just how to get things done with our people. And that's gotta, that can't fall on deaf ears. And I definitely that was a message that I felt I needed to deliver to you at this moment, because sincerely, to be a young brother in society today, to be in that so far left with your thought process, whereas, it's easy to be, it's like low hanging fruit. It's easy to be trapper. It's easy to have this image. It's easy to, you know what I mean? But to be out here, to be a voice and be something positive, for a role model for people to see. Hey, man. Nothing but Harold.
And there's nuances to that too, right? Like, I received that and I appreciate that, but I would be remiss if I don't mention that we all come from something. Yes. We all are human as well. So I am not your leader. You know what I mean? Not saying I do not have a leadership role or position of influence. I do have a position of influence. However, I think one thing that I'm starting to realize as I mature is that each person needs to hold some form of accountability for the things that they involve themselves with and the things that they need to see the change in their lives. And guidance is nothing without that first step of being teachable and being able to be accountable for your actions, right? For example, I love to be a role model, but I also love to be myself, right? So I don't need anyone putting me up on a pedestal or raising me higher than who I actually am. It's funny because it's a message that I live by. I've been living by it maybe 5+ years now, where it's kind of like one of my mottos that I don't know if anyone ever said it before, but maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But it's something that's always been sticking with me, where I want to live a life that has a legacy that outlives the life I actually lived. Like the things that I'm doing, everyone's telling me that I'm doing great and they're saying that I'm putting in the work. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I always feel like, yeah, but it could be this, it could be that. I always think about these things, and I know one day when it's time for me to transition, I want my impact to be more impactful than the life that I perceive myself living. Only because I'm not the bigger picture. I got to give all praise due to Yahweh, Elohim, Yeshua for me even bearing witness to my own journey, right? Like I fail, I mess up, and failing isn't a negative thing. It's literally putting forth the effort in order to succeed, and you're finding out you have to take one step back to move forward. So with that, I only say, because we've heard, I don't know, this is just for me, I've heard about positive role models before. I've heard about, in this day and age, in the technology age or the social media age, the idea of a role model or positive influence or a life coach or a mentor has been so overworked or overused, oversaturated, that there's a steep fall from grace when people have been put in those specific titles recently, because they can't live up to their own hype that people have given to them. And they kind of bask in this level of not having to be transparent about their journey.
Of course.
Right. And I pride myself when I say we're all divine by design. I say that to remind people, like, look, I don't care how dark things become for you. I don't care what you do in your darkness. Know that there is some divinity in you and you're divine by design. So get back to your divinity. Know that it's a spectrum. So any point that you're on in the spectrum, you have to see the big picture. So for me, right, like I said earlier about Eli the Menace, Eli the Authentic, all these different things. These are all different versions and forms of myself. And because of that, I might be a role model to one person, but to the next person, they may hate my guts. Right. You know what I mean? They might hold on to some stuff that I did some years ago that I since apologized for, even forgiven myself for, but I can't change or sway their opinion of who I am, because that's what they hold on to. I may trigger somebody unintentionally that they are unwilling to let go of, right? Or I may speak in a certain way that is not as flattery, or they might not find flattery in, that someone else loves and adores. So I'm a role model to some people. I may not even be a thought to them, and that's fine. The communities that we serve are the communities that we serve. But I just had to say that, like, in today's time, I think we have to be very careful. And it's not to you. I'm just saying on the greater conversation, we have to be very careful how we romanticize those that step forward in positions of leadership, because it's a lot of ugly stuff that goes on in the back. Absolutely. Where we're still learning. You know what I mean? We're learning until we die. Right? I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let us segue to the next part.
Yeah, no worries.
And I say this in recency more than I've ever said before. Who's Malcolm X?
You asking me, or you? Is this
right? Well, I mean, okay. Let me reframe that. We all know as Malcolm X. One chapter of his life. We don't know him as Malcolm Little. We don't know him as Detroit Red. We don't even know him as the person that he transitioned as. We only know him as Malcolm X. because that's what resonated with a lot of people, right? And we quote him all the time in that space. We don't even honor who the man transitioned as. We go think about the most thing that we find likable, and we stop there, right?
Agree with that 1,000.
It's scary because everyone talks about how radical Malcolm X was, and how much he was down the white man, and you know holding the white man accountable and doing all these different things. And I'm speaking because this is someone that's a post-homonymous mentor to me. Like, I've studied this man, and he's been through so many transitions in his life, so many different names, that we are doing his legacy a great disservice when we even call him Malcolm X and don't acknowledge him as El Haj Malik Shabazz, the man he transitioned as. Because when he transitioned very differently than what he was. He transitioned very differently. So we quote him and joyfully quote him, and we like, that's how I want to be. And man that you talking about want to be ended up. What his thought process was after that, what kind of aha moment or epiphany that he had before the end of his life, where he went and took his pilgrimage to Mecca, and he actually had his experiences and realized, like, not all people there are white or in color, Caucasian, right, are his enemy, and he changed his way of thought. It wasn't completely changed, but these pivotal moments within his life impacted his thought process. Think about Luther King Jr., that's a whole other conversation. But these changes in his thought process affected who he became towards the end of his life. And thank you. And I think we do a great disservice when we don't think about that or honor that when we start talking about him. Right. Because it goes back to what we're saying about, being a role model or being a leader. You might look at me now and think I'm a role model, not you, but I'm just saying, right? Like, people may enjoy the type of leader that I am now, and I might transition 10 years from now and become another evolutional version of myself that improves for me and my family and those that are in my tribe, but it might not work for everyone that's a part of my journey now, because they might enjoy who I am now. And that's okay. So I just want people to get comfortable with not being attached to those that they look at as leaders or those that they look at as pillars in our community, because they transition too. They're human. They evolve in thought. And it might be radically different from what they're used to seeing that person do. And we have to give them grace to grow in whomever they're becoming. That's all. No.
No. Listen, I'm glad and I'm thankful to get there to be able to capture the sound bites. These are things that needs to transition transcend going forward.
Yeah.
People forget the humanity, the human in the humanity. You have to understand, every person that has come before us that we quote, as you say, are human. People that are out there right now, like, okay, cool. Admonish Will Smith for slapping the brakes off of Chris Rock. He's human.
Yeah, come on now.
He had a human moment.
Come on now.
You know what I mean? Even something, and dare I say, get canceled and so forth and so on. Think about it from a perspective of we all fall short at times. The people that killed George Floyd, the officers, human. Yeah. They might have, but they are human regardless. Not saying that they shouldn't get their just desserts on certain things, but they are human.
Yeah.
And people love to champion the United States of America, say, oh, it's the land of the free, home of the brave, and so forth and so on. But we are human.
Come on now. Yep.
Come on. We're not. It's not that we're infallible. We have fallible moments as people. And people, we need to understand it's like you said, people put people on pedestals. Oh, well, Beyonce can't make a mistake. Why not?
Yeah.
She's human. And she operates in humanity just like the rest of us. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful that you put everything in the terms that you put it, because that's the truth. And I know one damn thing for sure. Donnie B got the beats who I am. I live unapologetically. I am who I am. I'm going to be that way because what I want is I want my kids to have the same ferocity about everything that I do, but be educated enough to be able to discern the difference between all of the dichotomy between all of the things that's out there in the world.
Yeah, and I second that. When I finally have children, I do. If I finally have children, if I choose to, right, I do want to be able to bestow upon them that same ability to critically think,
yes,
the ability to discern, the ability to have identity of self. I will teach them everything that I need to teach them about our history, about the history that's intertwined, about the sexuality of different histories that aren't so separate as we try to paint the picture to be. Because even being pro-Black, bro, that's a whole nother conversation, because there's some things that are inherently foul about the things that we represent being pro-Black. Where, you know, and this is coming as a Panther. There's some things that we have to address in the spirit of inclusion, and also address in the spirit of conversation about representing being pro-Black and representing what we stand for, and acknowledging, like, hold up, there are different factions of what it means to be Black. Black is a spectrum. You may not look exactly like my other brother, or you may not look exactly like my other sister. You may not look like my people that identify as something other than brother or sister, right? And who am I to then tread on their existence and discredit their existence because my level of understanding is not on their own, or vice versa? Like, who am I? You know, and I find too often, even in that freedom of speech, or that freedom or liberty, I should say, because there's always consequences to even when you speak freely, that who am I to say who you discerned yourself to be and you critically think yourself to be is wrong? You know, unless you're saying things that are completely false or have been rooted in things that have been proven false, then what am I saying? Even then, why would I say it if I'm not saying it out of love? Or why would I say it if I'm not, like, what is my purpose in even trying to prove you wrong if I have no purpose in your life after that? Or, you know what I mean? Who am I to you? Right? It's like, and that's another thing too. Like, man, look, I can talk all day about it, bro.
But here's the thing: this is why the reason why you can talk about it all day is because it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, it does.
That's the whole point. To have these kind of conversations, people need to understand. This is not like entry level conversation. This is not like, you know, small talk. This is, as Larry David said, this is medium talk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. This is extra large talk. Okay, and a lot of people are scared to touch on it for a reason. It could be they feel uncomfortable having the kind of conversation because they feel like they can't communicate because they lack the jargon to say what they got to say, or lack the understanding or the education to know what they're saying. But they want to say it's all about perspectives, platforms, and perspectives. What's your perspective and what's your take? Everybody has a right to their platform. And everybody has a right to their opinion and their feeling, but you have to respect the next person's same platform and perspective.
Come on now.
And that's all it boils down to. That is the key principles and values to hobnob and mingle in this world. That's why you get some people that's can operate at a Will Smith level and be out here and it doesn't matter what race it is, they love this person until they start to race on somebody. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to keep leaning on that, but it is what it is, But this is the conversation that needs to be had. I'm thankful to have that conversation with you, and definitely let this not be twisted. Hopefully, if you got time, we'd love to bring you back so we can further keep the communication going about these types of things, because I definitely respect your opinion, and you've done a lot of work for yourself, the community, and people nationally, obviously, as per your title. So the thing about it is that people should just understand. You're not looking at this thing with a narrow perspective. You're looking at you see it in a broader scope. You know what I mean? How are you on time?
Because I keep going, brother. We keep going. All right. How are you on time is the question. This is your
listen. I want to be respectful of the viewers. Obviously, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I don't want to take up too much of their time. But we're going to extend this just a little.
Yeah, we can keep going.
I love this conversation.
Yeah, we can keep going.
With everything that you said, we touched on Black Tone. We talked about a whole bunch of other things in the pantheon of Black excellence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to take it again because I love to take it back. I always love to take it back. So for you, as the national chairman, right, and you as a person who has, like you said, visited the Blacks of Wax, you sought out the education to understand, have a understanding about the existence. I want to ask you, what is your opinion and your thought, or would you like to educate? What would you like to share about the history of the BPP?
Okay, of the original Black Panther Party.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So as the DMV chairman, and then sitting under the tutelage of Malik Zulu Shabazz, and just doing research and learning about the Black Panther Party, from years of experience, as well as just being able to brush shoulders with original Panthers, right? The Black Panther Party has a very complex history, mainly because they were painted as radicals, they were painted as villains in history,
Right.
where their efforts to give power to the people, as Huey P. Newton would put, was something that was considered demonizing, right? They literally had FBI profiles.
Yeah.
Some of my mentors still have FBI profiles on them, and we look in the history books and treat it as if it's so long ago. But my father's 70; he lived through that time, right? Some of us still very much so vividly remember that history and remember how it was taught to us through it. And I love to always give honor and respect to those that come before me, those that took up the charge and took up the initiative to want to fight for people in a way where they see the haves and the have-nots and say the have-nots need more. The minority needing representation, right? I also respect how Fred Hammond, how Huey P. Newton, how Bobby Seale, how these people were our age and younger. Most of them were in college or high school ages doing this. They were young. So they got up and moved at it when their energy was ready to go in one direction. Right. They also had some forms of guidance here from people that were older. But it's also interesting to think about the original Panthers and how they had a rainbow coalition. There was a White Panther Party. I don't think people shed light on that enough. How Fred Hampton and Huey P. Newton, they reached out to other coalitions, other organizations that were not Black or not always people of color, and they looked at them and said, we have a common enemy here. Yes. We have a common issue, and can we work on our common issue together in order to create something sustainable for the people that are being mistreated and misrepresented? I think that's something very important to be put to the conversation, similar to what I mean about El Haj Malik Shabazz. I mean, these are things we must consider when reflecting on the history of such profound organizations that are found in pro-Black nature or rooted in our identity, because our identity is a complex identity. Our identity does not live and die only with us. Our problems do not live and die only with us. It is on us to take up their mantle, i.e. having programs for the people, having a 10-point program for self-defense, for feeding our people, having our own nation, having our own economy, having our own form of representation within our own communities where we're governing ourselves. Like, these are things that they were talking about, things that we've now in our day and age seen many times over and now are still implementing in our time. So these are things that we must continuously think about, but we also got to think about when we finally get what we've been fighting for, which some of us are getting it now, what's next? When we finally are at a place where we no longer are trauma bonding, What do you do when you're healed?
Oh man, listen.
We can't keep putting our identity in trauma all the time. We can't keep looking at these things and saying, well, I want to fight for this. I need to fight for, bro. I'm the first person to let somebody know. Like I've done over 10 marches. That's not a lot, right? Or is it, right? It's relative.
Perspective. Yes, perspective.
It's relative. But I've also, I've had the privilege of living down the street to DC. There's marches there all the time.
Yeah.
But what is that doing? In long-term solution, what is that doing? So our game plan has evolved in some facets and needs to continuously evolve to where we affect change or create change in different forms, in different ways that is more constructive to the greater good of our people. Who's our people? What do people identify as now? We need to revisit these conversations. Yes. What happened to the original Panthers? Why were they infiltrated the way they was infiltrated? Why did we rely so much on the identity of being Black that led to our downfall to begin with? What else are we than just being Black? What is deeper than being Black? What is your actual tribal name? What is the root of your community and your identity? You know, these are bigger conversations that we must have, because when you just leave it at Blackness, you have so many different ways to be infiltrated, for one. You also have so many different ways to be impacted by others that aren't in a way that might be conducive to the bigger picture. I say this all the time, and it's like it seems like I'm jumping point to point, but it's all encompassed around what you mean about my perspective about the original Panthers, and their community, right? Because I'm one of those people that will say, like, during the civil rights movement, one of our great disservices that we did was assimilate to white culture, right? Like segregation was a problem. Yes, it was dangerous. Yes, it was horrific. Yes. But desegregation and the pacification of our people, where we assimilated to communities that otherwise didn't want us to sit at their tables to begin with, created other more nuanced problems for us. The Great Migration north of where our people moved north looking for better opportunities just forced them into a different form of hatred. Yeah, it was better opportunities, but now you're dealing with hatred that's not so visible, right? So these are higher consciousness, higher level conversations that I believe that we need to start having, because if we do not have these conversations about our history as the Panthers, where things went wrong, where things were impacted negatively, we're doomed to repeat the same history. You know, we're doomed to perpetuate the same problems. I hate seeing our Black messiahs, I put quotation marks around that. I hate to see our Black messiahs get tore down as martyrs all the time. And there's a reason why that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I can go on about that specific topic, but just to summarize that point about that history, and it's a rich history, but it's also a history rooted in trauma and bonding in trauma. And I believe we're now at a point in time where we still are experiencing great levels of trauma, but we must now look for the solutions and also consider where we will be if we are healed, and what does that look like to be bonding in our healed form, because then we won't have to have these conversations as much about our problems. And now we are free to think bigger, or larger in a more grand scheme, a grand way.
You unpacked a lot. But what I will say is you unpacked a lot that I felt needed to be unpacked, because I align with a lot of the beliefs and structure that you just rationalized and that you brought to the forefront.
Yeah,
I'm thankful that you chose to bring to say what you said. So little known fact, airing it out, since it's a conversation between two brothers.
Yeah, let's go.
I am 45 years old. I've experienced a lot by way of racism, classism, sexism, financialism, however you want to put it. And I've met contrast in every single one of those genre. As I said, growing up as in the faith of Muslimism and the faith of the doctrine of and teachers of Elijah Muhammad. Again, not discrediting my father's faith because I grew up in a Christian house as well. So a lot of these principles were married.
Yeah.
There are a lot of complexities. My family, like I said, started in South Carolina, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, the whole that region right there, migrated north. I saw a lot, experienced a lot. So I'm very tuned to it. I still experience racism to this day in Los Angeles. I can say that with a straight face because it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key for me is I'm unapologetic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to apologize for my existence.
Yeah.
There's no way, form, shape, form of fashion. If you incarcerate me, I'm going to still be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we, as a people, the people that have a voice, can understand that we are, stop with the handout, stop playing victim.
Come on.
And also, as you said, learn to vocalize and communicate exactly what it is that you're hurting from. How can you make amends? How can you receive the benefits of the amends? So forth and so on. We will be in a truly better place. Case in point, I recall the George Floyd situation. I recall the Trayvon Martin situation. I recall all of the marches that decimated communities and so forth and so on. And I remember being in stark contrast to all of the rioting. Because to me, it was just like, okay, you marching, you going out there and you tearing shit up for what? Like, what are you asking for?
Yeah.
What is what is the end game here? Because how can you get resolution or resolve if you don't articulate what it is that helps you to gain that clarity and that resolve?
Yeah.
So you go through all of these things and not effectively communicate. Even we can go take it a step further. Reparation, which I do believe.
Come on now.
Black folk in America deserve reparations.
Look at San Francisco. Your neighbor is up in San Francisco working on something like that.
But here's the thing. Okay. Okay. See, you took me off schedule. So I'm going to just say this. This is my thoughts. Well, why can't, maybe it's a taxation thing. Maybe it's not even everybody gets a check. Maybe how about you wipe our credit?
Right.
How about you, give us a tax break?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't have to be put things in a positive or in a plus to put the economy in a red. It could be just something as simple as, look, at the end of the day, I apologize, sincerely, signed, the seal, deliver, the United States government for the shit that they didn't put us through. That is, you can turn over documents.
Yeah.
Things that were publicly redacted are now available online. There's imagery right now online that you can Google to see clear aspects of what happened to my ancestors, your ancestors.
Come on now.
But we don't deserve reparations. You can't get that to us. And to me, I hold the same people that are fighting for us accountable too, though.
Come on
because
now.
How do we? What is the end game? What are you asking for?
Yeah.
To get us there. If you just say we want reparations, they're gonna be like, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
So
do you have the financial literacy to sustain the reparations that you're even asking for? Yeah.
But even in that, don't you think of it from this perspective? Financially, let's just say off the suggestions that I made. Okay. Taxation, reparation. Clear everybody credit. Let's say, for instance, they clear every black person in America credit, because that's really how they kept the thumb on us.
Come on now.
If they clear everybody credit, everybody get A1 credit, reset, boom. Don't you think the economy is going to get kicked back up? You talk about the workforces and like, okay, shoot, you know how many we set black people credit and see if people ain't buying Ferraris and shit out of it.
Yep.
How is that not helping the economy?
Yep. But that's inflammatory, right?
It is.
Because it has to. I support what you're saying. I just want to go a step further in saying it has to be some type of program or some type of informational or educational thing adjacent with, maybe adjacent is not the right word, something that's coming with that package, right? Okay. Like, don't just give me a stimulus check of $1,200 and give me an educational background of what to use it on. So don't just clear my credit without telling me the highs and lows and dangers of using credit loosely.
I agree with you. And this is why I'm going to take it a step further than that. You work, have you ever worked in a Fortune 500 company?
No. Well, I don't believe so.
Okay. Have you ever worked for a large organization, a large company outside that's not like, the Black Panther Party? So
yes. Yeah.
You familiar with the term diversity and inclusion?
Of
and
course.
how prevalent it is that every organization seems to have a diversity and inclusion segment.
Of course.
Could you effectively tell me what is the name of the branch in the government that is responsible for protecting the values and principles for diversity and inclusion for people of color? Do you know, is there any such thing? Who's the diversity and inclusion people in the government? And why don't we have that?
Right, because in contrast to that, they have the foreign policy. And you got, which goes to another conversation. I see where you're going. This is a whole other conversation too, because about Black, nationality or a true identity that goes to the bigger conversation too about how even if you identify as being Black, like we talked about, there's nothing substantial that you can attach that to that will actually give you some form of representation beyond an emotional or some type of cultural relevance or social relevance. Like, we all socially on certain levels understand what it means to be Black and can say it in a certain way. But again, that's not going to be listed into foreign policies and coming over with an exact tribe, an exact identity, an exact country where it has an exact thing that can be traced. Yeah.
And with that being said, it's not true advocacy, because to be a true advocate is to have a person representing you in the room. Yeah. These are the things that I'm talking about. Yeah. So with that being said, again, they're not to beat the dead horse, because you, as far as I'm concerned, you're the brother of the room as far as I'm concerned. And I love it, but that's my point when we're talking about these types of things. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Why? And knowing like just simple stuff like routine. Everybody will talk about cops. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I can't say cops, police. Okay, do you know your rights? Yep. Are you doing your part to understand exactly how you can be handled and treated and how you cannot? And I understand there are people that once you are in it, once the government has you, it has you. Like, I am not aloof in that. But are you aware of the tools that help you? Yeah. To navigate if you're part of that situation.
Exactly. And a step further to that conversation, because my mentor is the head of the Black Lawyers for Justice. He's also the attorney overseeing, looking to get Carolyn Bryant, the woman involved with Emmett Till's murder, apprehended. So these are the things we have. And we're working on creating courses and classes to teach our rights. Now, outside of that, it's also another step in terms of that conversation, which we're putting a lot into this right now. But another step into that direction of that conversation about knowing your rights, knowing your values, saying defund the police, right? That's been a recent conversation that we had. Defund the police. I'm not inherently against defunding the police, because we know not all officers are bad, but as a systematic or systemic history behind police officers, aka overseers, aka slave patrol, like the history of police officers has a very dark history and origin. And even more so, we know that there's the fraternal order of police. There's literally gangs and secret organizations that are within the police that uphold certain values that may not have the benefits of our people directly. And we also know that their job is to protect and serve the property, not necessarily the people that are involved or engaged with the property. And they're addressing you in court because it's the law of the land and the maritime law, this is a conversation that might go over people's heads. So bear with me, understand me, that when we start talking about the levels or the deeper conversations of even defunding the police, what is your alternative measure of community engagement or alternative measure of community policing, if you will, or some type of security for your community? Because we talk about, okay, let's defund the police, right? But Black Wall Street got burnt down by whom? Who destroyed Black Wall Street?
I'm with you.
Who destroyed the communities over in Philadelphia, where you bear witness to, you came from? Who destroyed the Central Park? Like, the Central Park was a thriving Black community before it became Central Park. There's a long list of Black communities that were self-sufficient, self-sustaining, that tend to lack the policing that was needed to protect itself. You had deacons of defense, don't get me wrong. There were citizens in Black Wall Street that had bearing arms to protect it to a certain degree, but we fail to realize when we say, I want to get rid of this completely, we say that out of emotion. And again, we say that out of trauma, but we don't think about the nature of it being healed. Once it's no longer present, what is now your means of protecting and governing your community in a way that will be beneficial to your people?
Exactly.
Because you don't want to adhere to the laws of their land in their way. So what would be the lawful nature of governing ourselves? If we are to create a nation, because our people have been working to create a nation, there are Black nations out here that exist. And I'm using the term Black very loosely. Even in these nations, they still adhere to certain guidelines and rules, and there are still certain forms of discipline or certain forms of accordance to those guidelines and laws that they must adhere to. And let's say someone does not want to do that. What form of reformation that you're going to have the people go through? We talk about freeing our people from the jails. I'm all with that. But if we're freeing our people from the jails, do we have rehabilitation centers? Do we have enough adequate rehabilitation centers for young Black men that have been incarcerated wrongfully or have done things that caused them to be incarcerated and now they're coming out? Do we have things to keep them from going back in? Are we strong enough? We're not ready for that. At this current sitting moment, we're not ready for that. But I don't know on a tangent with that.
No. I think exactly we right where we need to be with it. I definitely want to, I want to put a placeholder and a pin in this, and invite you to come back. I definitely do. I will say this in response to what you just said, because I love what you just said, and I think you're absolutely right. I will make my statement on this is that I believe that I'm actually 100% against defunding the police, because, like you said, that institutes anarchy. What I would say is I would fund the police more, but what we need to do is police the police. Who's the oversight for them? If you take if you take police and put that same parallel along the side of, let's say, the NFL, you have the NFL and then you have the NFL Players Association. So the NFL Players Association is responsible for protecting the players in the NFL. Well, who's protecting the people against the police? Who's protecting the people against the government? We all have rights. Who's overseeing that?
Exactly.
You get into a court, all the judge is going to say is, okay, based off of the evidence, that you get some lawyer that knows how to throw his jargon around. Oh, well, you clear cut, blah, 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 blah. They saying a whole bunch of shit you don't know. At the end of the day, you out of there.
Too late. Yep.
Exactly. And 9 times out of 10, they're doing it to encapsulate you. There's so many charges that they can put you up that I forgot what they call them. They're like binding things where it's like it's just one charge, but they get you on these 3 charges beneath it. That now you're in the system. Now you owe them, and they're gonna leech off you. I'm sorry if I'm spitting this out. I'm sure the government gonna come after me in some shape, form, or fashion. You heard it here first, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But
it's not hidden information.
It's not hidden information. It is what it is, and the reality of it is that true change will not exist if there is no disruption to the system. The only way to disrupt the system is to disrupt. But you have to know you have to triage it. Like you can't go to the hospital with a broken arm and be like, my neck hurt.
Right. Right.
So we are in the same space, brother. Well, I won't say we're in the same space. We're in the same ideology as far as I'm concerned. But I definitely love your position. I love everything that you said. Like I said, I want to keep it a buck and keep it at time. And invite you to come back because I definitely want to continue this. So if you stay tuned after this, we get a little bit of time afterwards, so I can we can put a button and everything, and we can see if you're interested to schedule you in for another conversation and try to continue, because there's a lot more stuff about just you that people just need to understand.
Yeah.
And really seriously celebrate you because you've done a lot, you're doing a lot, and these things are exactly why I have you on here. History is history. Present is present. But the people who command the present are the people that we're going to be talking about in the future. And I feel you're one of those people.
Ooh, I receive that. That's a heavy mantle, but I pick it up. I pick it up. All praise due to the Most High for giving me that. Man, look. I try to listen. I try to be obedient to what's being said to me from the Most High. The places that I'm guided to be in, even when I don't listen and there's a lesson behind me not listening, I'm still grateful. So I'm just grateful for even, being able to be in this position. And I thank you for taking notice, because the work is never done. And sometimes the work does feel drowning, and I'm appreciative, of being noticed in that regard. Thank you.
It's heavy to wear the cape, man. If everybody could wear the cape, everybody be Superman, right?
Yeah.
So trust me, I get it and I respect it, and I appreciate you, and I celebrate all of your wins. You know what I mean? And I'm with you in all of your losses. And let's just see how we can limit those losses in the future. You know what I mean? Unless, like I said, I'm willing to do my part to be able to be of assistance to further your cause, brother. I'm a huge fan of yours now. So love to, like I said, sit there and chop it up with you in the future. So stand by. 2 questions I want to ask you, really quick questions, is A, for all of the people that have tuned in and are tuning in after this, with all of the, when they play it back, how can people learn more about you? How can they reach out to you? How can they support you?
For sure. Well, my Instagram is at e.dvine. I am present on there when I can be. I'm not present on there all the time. I am working to become more present. When this releases, maybe the event will still be, forthcoming. April 8th, 2023, I have a Sankofa conference, an international Sankofa conference here in the DC area, where we're bringing people coming from Zimbabwe, the Congo, Angola. They're coming over here for international business, trade, and relationships. I'm very monumental may not be the right word. I'm a part of the team that's putting this event together, one of the curators. So because of that, if you're able to be in the DMV area, in the DC area, April 8th from 1 to 5 at Anacostia Art Center, come through, speak with me. I am very personable. I believe so, and I would love to have you all present in this moment in history. That's my next upcoming event, where we're working with our brothers and sisters overseas, our brothers, sisters, and others that are overseas, and being able to have them a part of our community. Another thing too, I'm working on my ebook. I'm releasing an ebook really soon. Affirmations ebook is like a tell all or anything like that. I don't think I'm there yet, but my first ebook will be releasing soon. It's an affirmations ebook because my platform on social media, even though it has now since transitioned, like I'm not as active as I once was. I do pray to get back into that and being able to do it full time if the Most High sees fit. But it was mainly built up around positive conversations, being a motivational speaker originally, and building up people who were feeling down. It now evolved into a enrichment builder, which means someone who pours into people's lives professionally and looks to find value and add value to what's already present. So my first ebook is coming soon, turning the Monday motivation into a book. There we go, Spring, one of my supporters. I love Spring. I appreciate her very much. We have an ebook coming up where the motivations that I used to give on social media are now turning into book format that one can read on their own time. So yeah, that's some things that I have coming up now. Currently, you can reach me on my Instagram. If anyone needs my phone number, find it on my Instagram if it's time. There we go. I just reached 19.4K followers. I was at 19.3 for quite some time. So I just gained 1,000 followers. I'm very grateful. It took a while. So yeah, man, that's where you can find me. The Eventbrite for the COVID is my page as well if you'd like to support. And yeah, just reach out. Let's talk. Let's chat things up. For those that do reach out to me, I will say this. Bear with me. Please text me or DM me. And if I can't immediately respond, don't take it personal. I will respond as soon as I can. My life is a very busy one. And that's not to give you a disclaimer, but that's to give you a look into what's going on. So don't think that I'm, no longer personable because I didn't respond to you in a timely manner that you saw fit. And another thing too, be conscientious. I do open myself up into assisting our people and finding solutions for our people where I can, but be mindful. There are some things that I am not professionally able to guide you in, and I might point you in the right direction. And just be careful in the way that you approach me. Because I had people in the past just, for lack of better words, they have something heavy on their chest and they just do what's called diarrhea of the mouth. And that's not helpful for both of us because I feel that immediately. So just try to proceed with caution. I'm here to help. I'm here to assist in the ways that I can, but I also absorb a lot. And if I absorb, I want us to be very conscientious of how you might come off or how you might approach me as well. I am human, and I want us to be able to build that relationship if you do need assistance, but be respectful. Please be respectful. That's all I ask.
I love it. I love it. And everything that he said, hey, exactly what he said. And I have one more question for you, Elijah. What do you have any shout outs? Anybody that you want to call out? Anybody you want to celebrate in this moment right now?
Yeah. So shout out to Yahweh. Shout out to Elohim, the Most High for giving me life. I want to shout out to my parents, Patricia, Benny Vines. I want to appreciate them, show them love today. I want to shout out to my biological family, which we're going to talk about that on our next conversation. I want to shout them out too. Even though I don't know them yet, that's another conversation. I want to shout out to my mentor, Malik Zulu Shabazz, for giving me a platform and help seeing something within me. I want to shout out to Raymond Shorter, another one of my mentors, and all those that come with me on this journey and been supporting me on this journey for going on 7+ years now. It's crazy. I want to shout out everyone that's been a part of this journey. I may have not mentioned your name formally now, but I pray that you forgive me and know that you are on my mind. Yes, that's what I'm gonna do there.
Well, like I said, Elijah, it's been a pleasure. It's been an extreme honor. If you hang on a bit, so we can unpack this episode afterwards, it'd be greatly appreciated. So please stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we are at time. Look, I try to be respectful of everybody's time as much as I would love, because I'll do a whole 3-hour joint, I'll do an 8-hour joint. That's a day, you know what I mean? But I think that there's a lot to unpack. and I try to stay in the present about people's attention spans. So definitely was not trying to rush the brother. Just wanted to make sure that I adhere to everybody that's on the platform, so everybody gets the nuggets and wisdom that they can get in the time of this box, I guess is the best way to put it. But needless to say, like I said, make sure you like and subscribe, follow brother Elijah DVine on social media. Follow his work. This brother's work ethic is unparalleled. I totally understand where he comes from with regard to having a busy schedule, busy slate. People kill me on a daily about that, so I understand. But those that know, they know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without further ado, we had time. Like I said, follow, subscribe, brother DVine on social media. Follow, subscribe to BEATvla on all social media. We're gonna have Kev Ave up next this week. A couple of other people that we're gonna have up coming up real soon. Going into season 7 strong, ladies and gentlemen. My COVID pivot is still pivoting. So I'm blessed. I'm thankful. I'm humbled, and I'm uber excited to keep having talent such as this brother here, Elijah DVine, on a platform and just giving us quality information, quality energy, and just so much awesomeness. I'm humbled and honored. So with that being said, you ladies and gentlemen know what time it is. I am Donnie B. GotDaBeats. We live on the beat. Ladies and gentlemen, we out. Peace.
Peace.
Donnie,